Now tonight we are celebrating the 400th anniversary of one of the world's great literary works, the First Folio of Shakespeare's plays. There'll be a lot about that in a few moments. But first of all, you may have noticed on your handout there's a little fun baker's dozen quiz of 13 famous lines from Shakespeare, which are all in the First Folio. And we'd like to begin by providing you with the rest of the words. Now, I'm sorry there are no prizes for this, but please listen carefully to the rest of the lines. So, the first one is, of course, from Twelfth Night, very famous line, "If music be the food of love, play on, give me excess of it." So, Suguru, please play on. Number 2 is also from Twelfth Night. "Oh, mistress mine, where are you roaming? Oh, stay and hear your true love's combing." 3 and 4 are both from As You Like It. "Can one desire too much of a good thing? All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." Number 5 from Cymbeline. "Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. Thou thy worldly task hast done, home art gone and ta'en thy wages. Golden lads and girls all must, as chimney sweepers, come to dust." Number 6, Antony and Cleopatra. "The barge she sat in, like a burnished throne." Number 7 from Julius Caesar. "Et you, Brute? Then fall, Caesar." 8 and 9 from the Tempest. "Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. Where the bee sucks, there suck I." Number 10 to 13 are all from the Scottish play, sometimes known as Macbeth. "Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. Dabble, dabble, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes." T-shirt courtesy of the Globe Theatre in London. Well, there we are. That's the end of our little quiz. I hope you enjoyed that. If you know all of those lines, then you are a true foliophile. What all those words have in common is that we only have them today, and in fact we are only here today because they were printed for the first time in the First Folio. So I should just have a little mention that Macbeth is a huge box office hit still today. Right now, through into autumn, 4 major productions are going on in Britain. One at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Ralph Fiennes is travelling around Britain playing Macbeth. And also at the Globe Theatre, where this comes from, today their performance of Macbeth is starting tonight. and it features a female King Duncan. Huh. Okay. Anyway, just thought you would like to know that. So, maybe it's time to have a look at this magnificent book, the First Folio. Suguru, could you tell us a little bit about it? And its rarity, while I put on my white gloves.
Well, as you can see, it's going to be a very expensive book. But, it's not. Actually, it's one of the most valuable rare books, holding the record price for the literary work. And complete version sold in 2020 for $10 million. And the most recent sale was this year in London for £6.25 million.
Impressive, eh? And I just happen to have here my edition of the First Folio, which is why I put my gloves on. Yes. It's a very beautiful thing. In need of a little repair. The cover has actually fallen off. But I have to admit, I'm sorry, this is actually a 19th century reprint. It does, however, date back to 1864, which means it's Edo. And what was interesting is inside the cover it says this book belongs to the Foyt Library in Michigan. And it was dated 1889, which is when that library was founded. Now, why did this book end up in Jimbacho in Japan? I don't know. In my library. I hope it wasn't stolen from the Foyt Library. Is there anybody here from the Foyt Library? Anyway, this is an exact replica, which is why it's interesting. When we open it, here we have the very famous, this is what it's like. A very large portrait of Shakespeare, and over here on the left, Ben Jonson's little poem about this picture, saying how much it fits his face. In other words, Ben Jonson, who of course knew Shakespeare, claims that this actually looks like Shakespeare. This is something we'll talk about a little bit later. You may wonder, what exactly is a folio? Well, a folio comes from the Latin for folium, meaning leaf. And what it means is you have one sheet of paper and you folded it once, like this. And this creates two leaves. One leaf, two leaf. But it creates 4 pages. And this is what a folio is made from, sometimes a bit bigger than this. Folio books at that time were mostly for religious texts or kind of important, very important works, not literary works, which is why it's interesting. There was also the quarto, which you may be aware of. There were various, like Hamlet was produced in 2 quarto editions, which means this is folded twice. So you get 8 pages, and that's how they were then bound together. Now, the history of Shakespeare's version is in 1616, the year that Shakespeare died, Ben Jonson, the playwright, produced his own folio edition of his plays and his poems. After Shakespeare's death, 3 of his fellow actors decided they would like to get together all his Shakespeare's works. Very nice of them. Partly to remember Shakespeare, and I think partly as a business proposition, of course. They were Mr. Hemmings, Mr. Condell, and Richard Burbage, the famous actor who was the first Hamlet, first Othello, and so on. And it took them 7 years, and they gathered whatever they could, whatever bits and pieces they had. Of course, books were, on the whole, often not printed and not copyrighted, an extremely complicated situation. So they, anyway, put them all together and created this edition in 1623, 7 years later. And the editors, this a little bit I put in the handout, I think, they said there are various poems and messages from the editors in the first few pages, and they said, anyway, the important thing is, whatever you do, buy. Those are their exact words. Please buy this book. And then read again and again. That was part of their message. It was actually 227 sheets, which means 454 leaves, which means 908 pages. This is an incredible job. They were using movable type. There's an example of the movable type for the Tempest on your handout. Of course, it's reversed for printing. These little bits of type, actually, they used 4 million to produce this book. 9 compositors used 4 million pieces. They also used a few woodcut headpieces and tail pieces. Now, they didn't actually have that many million movable type bits. They would print so many, and when they found mistakes, of which there were many, they would maybe revise it until they wanted to, this is enough, we've printed enough, then you destroy those and you start again on the next pages, like that. So there are many mistakes from the early days. People, of course, these days know when this is an early one, this is a very early one. There were 750, they think, copies printed, and they were roughly 15 shillings or £1 each, which is said to be 44 loaves, quite expensive. Today, around 235 remain. Only 56 are complete, which is why they're so expensive. Collectors over the centuries have gathered bad copies and stuck pages together and so on to try and make a complete edition, but they're rare. 149 are in the USA, 82 of them in the Folger Institute Library in Washington. The Folger family were great folio collectors. 82 copies. There are 50 in the UK, 15 in London, 5 in the British Library, 3 in Stratford-upon-Avon, and 1 in King Charles's hands. He has it, I expect, for bedtime reading. And there are 13 copies in Japan, 10 of which are at Meisei University. If anyone's from Meisei University, we say congratulations on your collection. And only 27 copies are in private hands. Okay, those are the numbers. Why is it important, is the big question. Well, I think there are 4 reasons. 1, 18 of Shakespeare's plays had not previously been printed. That means that they might have been lost forever, in which case we would not be here today. Secondly, the editors put together what they thought were the best versions of some of the previously printed quartos. Some of those were pretty bad. For example, one quarto of Hamlet says, "To be or not to be? Aye, there's the point." Pretty bad, eh? They tried to put together good editions because they had actually acted in them. The third one is, of course, these days we quote regularly from these plays. Newspapers use them for headlines. There are lots of parodies of Shakespeare, like we did Julius Caesar at the beginning. All of that would not have existed. And fourth, the portrait, which I'll talk about later, the iconic portrait of Shakespeare. So excuse me talking so much, but just to finish with Ben Jonson's comments inside the folio, he said these famous words: "Soul of the age, the applause, delight, the wonder of our stage, my Shakespeare, rise. Thou art a monument without a tomb, and art alive still while thy book doth live. And we have wits to read and praise to give. He was not of an age, but for all time." And here we are 400 years later in Tokyo, still listening and reading to his work, so that's great. Okay, enough of the glove section, I think. What we would like to do, Suguru and I have put together a little medley of all bits from all 18 plays which had not previously been printed. And we'll do this in alphabetical order. Rather ironically, we begin with "All's well that ends well." So here we go. Helena is optimistic about the future. when briars shall have leaves as well as thorns, and be as sweet as sharp, we must away. Our wagon is prepared and time revives us. All's well that ends well, still defines the crown. Whate'er the course, the end is the renown. Next, Antony and Cleopatra. Enobarbus describing Cleopatra. The barge she sat in like a burnished throne, burned on the water. The poop was beaten gold, purple the sails, and so perfumed that the winds were lovesick with them. The oars were silver, which to the tune of flutes kept stroke, and made the water which they beat to follow faster, as amorous of their strokes. For her own person, it beggared all description. She did lie in her pavilion, cloth of gold of tissue, or picturing that Venus where we see the fancy outwork nature. And now one line from As You Like It. Rosalind is expressing her romantic views on Orlando to Celia. Do you not know I am a woman? When I think, I must speak. Coriolanus. Coriolanus has been persuaded by his mother not to attack Rome. Oh, mother! Mother! What have you done? Behold, the heavens do ope, the gods look down, and this unnatural scene they laugh at. Oh, my mother. Mother! Cymbeline. Cloten. Imogen's stepmother's son is outside Imogen's door. He's trying to wake her up, get her to open the door, using musicians and a singer. I am advised to give Imogen her music of mornings. They say it will penetrate. Musicians. First, a wonderful sweet air with admirable, rich words to it, and then let her consider. Hark, hark! The lark at heaven's gate sings, and Phoebus' skins arise. My lady sweet, arise! 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 Next two history plays. Henry VI, Part 1. Red Rose or White Rose, that is the story. The Earl of Warwick admits his ignorance of the fine points of law. Between two hawks, which flies the higher pitch? Between two dogs, which hath a deeper mouth? between two blades, which bears the better temper? Between two horses, which doth bear him best? Between two girls, which hath the merriest eye? I have perhaps some shallow spirit of judgment, but in these nice sharp quillets of the law, good faith, I am no wiser than a jackdaw. Henry VIII. Queen Catherine has asked one of her ladies to relieve her sadness with a song about sweet music. Orpheus with his lute made trees, and the mountain tops that freeze bow themselves when he did sing. To his music plants and flowers ever sprung, as sudden showers there had made a lasting spring. Everything that heard him play, even the billows of the sea, hung their heads and then lay by. In sweet music is such art, killing care and grief of heart, fall asleep, or hearing die. The Taming of the Shrew. Oh, I beg your pardon, no. Julius Caesar. I thought Taming was a bit earlier then. Sorry. Julius Caesar. Brutus discusses the importance of going with the flow. There is a tide in the affairs of men which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. King John. The Earl of Salisbury explains why he regards the king's second coronation as unnecessary. To gild refined gold, to paint the lily, to throw a perfume on the violet, to smooth the ice, or add another hue unto the rainbow, or with taper light to seek the beauteous eye of heaven to garnish, is wasteful and ridiculous excess. Well, like a round of golf, that's the end of the first 9. Hope you enjoyed those. But before we continue with our 18, let's briefly consider the other major feature of the first folio I mentioned, the iconic Shakespeare portrait, as modelled by our pianist tonight, Minamide Suguru. Very expensive model, comes specially. They said meow, did you hear that? Anyway, as Suguru tours the room, here is the picture, slightly larger. Now, this, to anybody around the world, basically is Shakespeare, right? This appears anywhere, even parodies, cartoons, anybody knows This is William Shakespeare. The problem is, this is a very strange picture. It was done by a very young Flemish painter who was never very successful, actually. His name was Martin Droeshout. I hope that pronunciation is correct. And over the centuries, there have been many critical remarks about this portrait. And if you think about it, it's very strange. First of all, people are very worried about the head, because this head doesn't seem to have a neck, and it seems to float. Martin obviously realized this because only the first few editions of the book have the very floaty image. He corrected it. He corrected, this is a copper engraving. He corrected it and put in a bit of shading here, makes it more three-dimensional, and a little bit round here, and so on. He actually changed it a bit. He also put a little bit more interesting in the eyes. So he knew it was not particularly good. Some people say this isn't even a portrait, this is a mask. This is, you can see lines here, as though it's just a mask stuck on a design. Also, his forehead is remarkably big. His hair is different on both sides. And various people have proved that actually this is virtually a morph of several portraits of women. If you look on the internet, and all kinds of interesting stuff. This, of course, is part of the ammunition for people who don't believe Shakespeare wrote the plays. They think this is a joke picture, and particularly because of this, his clothes. This doublet, as it's called, is totally wrong, and tailors have had lots of fun discussing it. The embroidery doesn't match and so on. So this is the left side, and that is the front of a doublet. But you expect the other side to be the same, right? Usually left and right are the same. It's totally different. And tailors have proved this is the back of this. This is the left front. This is the left back. Isn't that interesting? Why? This is a big mystery. It remains a mystery. The publishers must have known that. Surely the artist must have known that. People say this is a kind of face stuck on bits of fabric. It's not a portrait at all. So this is some kind of joke about Shakespeare's name, even though Ben Jonson said it was a wonderful portrait. Anyway, of course, I cannot give you any further information unless we interview Martin himself. But that's the problem. However, here it is, the iconic Shakespeare, the best picture we have of him from somebody who, and commented on by Ben Jonson, who knew him. The other one, of course, is in the church in Stratford where Shakespeare is buried. That kind of rather strange little figure, which is very similar to this. Anyway, that's the portrait problem. But thanks to the First Folio, we have this. There it is, and if you see, what's unusual about this is it's huge, right, the picture. It's almost, half a page, right? Normally, books had a portrait of somebody much smaller than that in the middle, with a big design around it. Oh, lots of mysteries, which we may never know the answer to. While I've got it, I should just show you. The first play is The Tempest, which is regarded as the last play he wrote. Very interesting. Why? Possibly because it was the freshest and they thought they could get it kind of right. At the end of The Tempest, they put the actual list of the actors, a little bit the opposite of modern editions. But anyway, that's, and it's it's all 2 columns. That's the way it's laid out. Okay, so, shall we get back to our medley, Suguru? The back 9. Macbeth. It's encore time for the 3 witches. Here we go. When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, that will be ere the set of sun. Where the place upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth. Fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Lots of people think that should be hubble bubble, which it isn't, actually. Many people quote it like that, but there you go. The next one, measure for measure. This is Isabella talking about power. This is what she says. Oh, it is excellent to have a giant's strength, but it is tyrannous to use it like a giant. The Comedy of Errors. Adriana, unaware that she is addressing her husband's identical twin. This is a very big error indeed. She's talking to someone who she thinks is her husband. It isn't. I, Antipholus, look strange and frown. Some other mistress hath thy sweet aspects. I am not Adriana, nor thy wife. The time was once when thou, unurged, wouldst vow that never words were music to thine ear, that never object pleasing in thine eye, that never touch were welcome to thy hand, that never meat sweet savoured in thy taste, unless I spake, or looked, or touched, or carved to thee. How comes it now, my husband? Oh, how comes it that thou art thus estranged from thyself? The Taming of the Shrew. Petruchio and Catherine's famous first meeting. Good morrow, Kate, for that's your name, I hear. Well, have you heard? But something hard of hearing. They call me Catherine, that do talk of me. You lie, Faith, for you are called plain Kate, and bonny Kate, and sometimes Kate the Cursed. But Kate, the prettiest Kate in Christendom, Kate of Kate Hall, my super dainty Kate, hearing thy mildness praised in every town, thy virtues spoke of, and thy beauty sounded, yet not so deeply as to thee belongs, myself am moved to woo thee for my wife. Moved. In good time let him that moved you hither remove you hence. The Two Gentlemen of Verona. The clownish servant Lance is upset to leave home with his master Proteus, and he complains about Crab, the only dog in the First Folio. Nay, 'twill be this hour I have done weeping. I'm going with Sir Proteus to the Imperial's court. I think Crab, my dog, is the sourest natured dog that lives. My mother, weeping. My father, wailing. My sister, crying. Our maid, howling. The cat, wringing her hands. And all our house in great perplexity. Yet did not this cruel-hearted cur shed one tear. He's a stone, a very pebble stone, and has no more pity in him than a dog. Now, do you want to stay there? You want to stay there with Uncle Suguru? No? I'm going to go back in the kennel. All right? These people don't want to see you anymore. No? All right. Sorry, Uncle. He's getting a bit overtired, you know. All these people around, he's a bit excited, right? Thank you very much. The Winter's Tale. Autolycus is a crafty street peddler. He's a bit like a tofu seller or a yakimo man. His sales talk describes his wares, including lawn, which is linen, cypress, Dutch fabric, coifs, ladies' caps, and stomachers, which are kind of embroidered corsets. Lawn as white as driven snow. Cypress, black as air was crow. Gloves as sweet as damask roses. Masks for faces and for noses. Bugle bracelet, necklace amber. Perfume for a lady's chamber. Golden coifs and stomachers for my lads to give their dears. Pins and poking sticks of steel, what maids lack from head to heel. Come by me, come by me, come by. Buy, lads, or else your lassies cry. Come by! Timon of Athens. The philosopher Epimantus rails against the other guests' flattery of the wealthy nobleman Timon. I wonder men dare trust themselves with men. Methinks they should invite them without knives. I should fear those that dance before me now would one day stamp on me. It has been done. Men shut their doors against a setting sun. Ah, that men's ears should be to counsel death, but not to flattery. And finally, Twelfth Night. Sir Toby Belch, Sir Andrew Aguecheek, and Feste the Fool are having a party. Come on, Feste. There's sixpence for you. Let's have a song. Would you have a love song or a song of good life? Oh, a love song, a love song. Aye, I care not for good life. Oh, mistress mine, where are you roaming? Oh, stay and hear, your true love's coming, that can sing both high and low. Trip no further, pretty sweeting, journey's end in lovers' meeting. every wise man's son doth know. What is love? 'Tis not hereafter. Present mirth hath present laughter. What's to come is still unsure. In delay there lies no plenty. Then come, kiss me, sweet and 20. Youth's a stuff will not endure. And that brings us to the end of the medley. All plays that were printed for the first time in this book. Actually, we cheated a bit because there was one play missing, you might have noticed, but we'll do more of that a bit later. Suguru, as you know, my personal interest in Shakespeare derived from a young age because I lived 1 hour's drive away from Stratford. So I was very lucky to see many young great actors and actresses performing there, like Judi Dench, Helen Mirren, Ian Holm, Ian McKellen, Derek Jacobi, etc., when they were very young and I was very young. And then, of course, I read and acted plays at school and so on. How about your connection with Shakespeare?
My first encounter with Shakespeare's work actually came quite late in my student life. When I was a student at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff, I was interested in writing music for theatre. And I was fortunate enough to have a chance to write for one of the college drama production, which was at Midsummer Night's Dream. But although I was interested in writing music for theatre, I had never actually wrote music for theatre, so I didn't have a clue how to go about it. And I'd never had read any Shakespeare work at all, so or even not listened to any of the music of that era actually. And I studied piano as a first study, and as a pianist, we don't really cover music from 16th or 17th century because the piano hadn't been invented at that time. So there was no music written for it. The earliest keyboard music we usually play in music colleges are the works of J.S. Bach, which were not even written for the piano. We never had a chance to listen to it. Although the piano was invented at the beginning of the 18th century, it only became popular in the latter half of the century thanks to composers like Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. So when I was preparing music for Midsummer Night's Dream, that's when I started to listen to many music from 16th centuries.
So what kind of music did you listen to?
Well, a lot of music I listened to was religious music, simply because it survived in manuscript form. Because we know there was secular music performed from early ages, but it was usually passed down orally, so it was never notated in manuscript. And one of the reasons that, unlike now, only a handful of intellectuals, for example, clergymen, knew how to write. So most of the music was written all the Christian music. But I think it changed everything when the printing was invented. Then many music, including secular music, and especially Shakespeare music, some of the original Shakespeare music, we think, were actually written on the music. That's why some of the music has survived, I think.
So how much music was being played in Shakespeare's plays?
Well, when I started preparing, especially for this collaboration, I decided to go further research on the music of Shakespeare, and I was surprised to find that there were a lot more music in theatre than I expected. And I was looking through different documents, through books and things, and there was a funny things written on there was when the second Blackfriars Playhouse in London was being constructed in 1596. Local residents tried to block the construction, and the reason for that is they said the noise of the drummers and trumpets emanating from the planned playhouse disturbed religious service nearby. So from this complaint, we can imagine that there was substantial music performed in the theater. And of course, there are many songs sung in plays and dances after shows, as well as sound effects such as drums being played off stage as the sound of thunder.
A little bit like kabuki sound effects. Maybe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think they're very similar things in although it's in Japan and England. Yeah, something very similar approach.
And in fact, there's in the handout there's a little drawing of what they think places like the Blackfriars Theatre were like, indoor theatres, where of course they could control the music and sound effects much better than the Globe, which was open air. And of course these days at the Globe, you get planes flying over, which tends to affect the music somewhat. Okay. By chance, today, also opening at the Globe Theatre in London, is the play As You Like It. Not only Macbeth, As You Like It as well today. So we're going to do the most famous line, a speech maybe from As You Like It, which is the 7 Ages of Man. And it's spoken by a very cynical character, usually called Jaques, pronounced Jaques these days. Melancholic, philosophic lord who thinks a lot and does nothing. Would you like some totally useless trivia about this? His name? Jacques, of course, is French version of the name Jack or James. In this play, he's usually pronounced Jaques, but Shakespeare's time probably Jakes. It even appears in King Lear, actually. And the word Jakes comes from the idea of Jack's house, with Jack as a generic name for a man, similar to the American slang use of John. In fact, it means toilet. And one version was also Ajax, like the ancient Greek warrior. Now, the play As You Like It was written in 1599. Back in the early 1590s, the writer Sir John Harrington, who's a friend of the Queen, invented the world's first flush toilet. This is a major thing. He called it Ajax, and in 1596 he published a paper called The Metamorphosis of Ajax, in which he not only described his toilet, but he attacked various politicians. His wish was to clean up both people's houses and clean up politics. A very interesting idea. This upset the Queen, actually. So Shakespeare, of course, was suggesting the words of a character called Jakes should not be taken too seriously. And the Elizabethan audience would have been quite aware of that and found them very funny. Even Touchstone in the play calls him Master What-You-Call-It to avoid saying Jakes in mixed company. Actually, Jakes is still a slang word for toilet. Now, you may know the well-known products called Ajax, which are domestic cleaning products still alive today. And they're run by Colgate and Palmolive, but they have a different story. They don't say this toilet story. They say it's named Ajax because the mythological Greek warrior cleaned up in battle. Not a very good story, right? Anyway, now you know the truth. So Jakes, or Jaques, it's tongue-in-cheek wisdom. Don't take it too seriously. It includes a new word Shakespeare invented, which is eventful, a very nice word. And one thing is good capon-lined. Capon are chickens, and it means a judge who was bribed by people giving him chickens. So he has a very excellent stomach full of chickens. So here we go with our version of the 7 Ages of Man. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant. Mewling, meow, and puking in the nurse's arms. Oh no. And then the whining schoolboy. With his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths, bearded like the part, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice. In fair round belly, with good cape on line, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon. With spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again towards childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all. That ends this strange, eventful history. Is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Well, the play we were missing earlier on was The Tempest. The Tempest, I said, the first play in here, the last play he wrote. It was a very popular play and always has been. Probably his last solo play, and often regarded as his farewell to the theatre before retirement. It's been adapted in so many ways, in movies and operas. John Gielgud read every part in the movie Prospero's Books, and Helen Mirren did a female version of Prospero, filmed on a remote Hawaiian island, and Suguru found a Peter Fonda movie which is set in the Civil War in America. All kinds of ideas around The Tempest. And of course it's a lot to do with music. It has the most music, doesn't it, Suguru?
Yeah. So written by many different composers.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that the music and songs and sound effects are used in various different ways, right, in the play. For example, to create the remote island atmosphere filled with fantasy and magic to further the plot by influencing the characters and also to provide light comic moments. And lots of composers have written, haven't they?
Yep. Well, I have a one piece which was probably be composed and used in Shakespeare's time. The famous Where the Bee Sucks.
Shall I read it quickly, the words?
Yeah, please.
This very famous song from Ariel when he's given freedom by Prospero. And it's a lovely, bouncy song rhythm anyway in the text. Where the bee sucks, there suck I. In a cowslip's bell I lie. There I couch when owls do cry. On the bat's back I do fly. And here's a 16th century version.
Where the bee sucks, there suck I. In a cowslip's bell I lie. There I couch when owls do cry. On the bat's back I do fly.
And there's another one, which is...
Where the bee sucks, there suck I. In a cowslip's bell I lie. Then I couch when owls do cry. On the swallow's wings I fly. After sun.
So those are two kind of very old versions of that song, and of course people still keep writing them. Now, let's get through to the play and some sound effects, because although we're a little bit high-tech today over in this corner, basically we're a little bit low-tech. And this Suguru's piece for The Storm, which opens the play, is actually based on a Tokyo storm, isn't it, a few weeks ago?
Yeah, a few weeks ago when we had a big storm, I think last month or something. Yeah, I actually recorded the sound of it.
You may not follow the shouting I'm about to do. It's the beginning of the play. Shakespeare's plays always start with important words, and right from the beginning, this is a scene of anti-authority, because it's the middle of a storm, and the ship's boatswain is telling the King of Naples and his counsellor, if they can't stop the storm, shut up and go back to your cabin. Which is quite a strong point to make at the beginning of a play. And the first folio setting says, on a ship at sea, a tempestuous noise of thunder and lightning. Take in the topsail! Tend to the master's whistle! Good boatswain, have care. Where's the master? I pray now, keep below. Where is the master? Do you not hear him whistling? You mar our labour, keep your cabins. You do assist the storm. Nay, good, be patient. I'll be patient when the sea's patient. Tense. What cares these roars for the name of king? To cabin, silence, trouble us not. Remember who's on board. Not that I love more than myself, you are a counsellor. If you can command these elements to silence, we will not hand a rope more. Use your authority. If you cannot, give thanks you live so long. Make yourself ready in your cabin for the mischance of the hour. Out of our way, I say! Did you get the idea of that? That actually sets the scene perfectly for the play. It's about identity and authority and natural and unnatural elements. And of course, that famous speech describing the island we're going to do in a moment. But the fact that the play opens like that, the audience is also fooled, because that tempest is magic. It's not a real storm at all. So Shakespeare actually fooled us immediately right from the beginning. Okay, let's do Caliban, the half-human slave of Prospero, his famous speech about the island using very lyrical language. Be not afeard, the isle is full of noises, sounds, and sweet airs, that give delight and hurt not. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about mine ears, and sometimes voices that if I then had waked after long sleep will wake me again, make me sleep again, and then in dreaming the clouds methought would open and show riches ready to drop upon me. That when I waked, I cried to dream again. And now a very famous song related to the plot. It's sung unseen by the non-human spirit Ariel to Ferdinand, son of the king. He believes his father is drowned. Actually, his king is still alive. But notice the beautiful repetitions of the letter F in this song. Full fathom 5 thy father lies, of his bones are coral made, those are pearls that were his eyes. Nothing of him that doth fade, but doth suffer a seed change into something rich and strange. Sea nymphs hourly ring his knell, ding dong. Hark, now I hear them, ding dong, bell. And now something completely different. Would you like a sailor's drunken song? This is Stefano, the drunken butler. He's a butler, but nothing like a Downton Abbey butler. He's shipwrecked and he saved a barrel of wine and is wandering around totally drunk. And this is the song he sings. Oh, the master, the swabber, the boatswain and I, the gunner and his mate, love Mal, Meg and Marion and Marjorie, but none of us cared for Kate. For she has a tongue with a tang, would cry to a sailor, go hang. She loved not the savour of tarn or of pitch, yet a tailor might scratch her where'er she did itch. Oh, to sea, boys, and let her go hang. Beautiful Shakespeare, that's. I can see we're running out of time rapidly. So I think we'd better go on to the famous section by Prospero about our revels being ended. This is a very famous speech which comes across as though, in fact, he's talking about the end of his theatrical life as well as Prospero's life with the spirits. And he says life itself is a dream. So when the curtain comes down on our life, like the spirits, we melt into thin air. And the thin air is a phrase which Shakespeare invented. It includes the word globe, which of course can refer to the world or the globe theatre. And the baseless fabric of stage illusions include the word rack, which could actually mean the clouds at the back of a stage, or it could mean a shipwreck, which is an illusionary storm at the beginning of the play. Here we go. Our revels now are ended. These our actors, as I have foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself Yea, all which it inherit shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Beautiful play, and we'd like to finish with something which is not actually in the first folio. Our revels are nearly finished as well, but we'd like to just give you a beautiful love poem, because it's about immortality created by the written word, and all the words we've heard tonight are still alive thanks to the editors of the First Folio. The First Folio doesn't include any poems of Shakespeare. They, of course, were collected separately, and we'd like to read one of his 14-line sonnets. It's a very famous and beautiful one, number 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dim. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Thank you very much.